is in action. I think in the Derech Hashem, in the introduction, they have something about a statement by the Vilna Gaon, who said that he would have walked actually from Vilna to Padua to learn from the Ramchal, and he said, "Oh, was that last week? Jason wasn't with us. Jason, are you? Welcome. Hi. Sorry,
Hi.
I got my weeks wrong. Or did you get your weeks wrong?
No, I was not with you last week.
It was last week. Okay, great.
I missed your epic discussion about beer in the UK. I didn't get to join in. Seeing I spent a year in university in Scotland, so
where were you?
A lot to add. St. Andrews.
St. Andrews. Oh, wow. Okay, that's a nice university. My great-grandfather was the head of the student union at Glasgow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
his father was the beadle of the local synagogue.
Your one comment on how you had a lot of free time to think and stuff like that. So I went to do the registry for classes, and I had a list of the classes I wanted, and I listed the first two, and they're like, "Okay, you're done." I'm like, "But the rest of these," and they're like, "No, you're done." And it was like, "But I'm literally going to class for 5 hours a week. That's it." And he's like, "Oh, you Americans, you'll see your time will be filled up." And I was like, it was filled up, but not with anything to do with anything.
Brilliant.
I had a great time. Definitely was not in class very much. So.
There you go. Yeah, I joined the Fine Ale Society. That was I went to one meeting. They were an odd bunch. I decided to leave, but okay, gentlemen, let's get back on track. Lev's up and about, so we need to keep his attention. Okay, so as I was saying, the Vilna Gaon, there I am trying to water down or decide what to skip, and I think the Vilna Gaon said he found in the first 6 chapters of the book or something crazy. He said, I never found an extra word. So there we go.
Actually, in that vein, his Hebrew is remarkably clear and simple and modern. I mean, he's seen as one of the founders of modern Hebrew language, drama, and poetry. When you read the Hebrew, it's amazingly clear and undecorated, don't you think?
Yeah, very much. I enjoyed it a lot. So, without any further ado, let us get going. I'm gonna, by show of hands, who did pre-read for tonight? Wow. Okay, great. So we can actually just discuss more than read. Oops, all those funny things. By the way, I did take this picture with our underwater camera in Belize.
Cool.
Still trying to work out what this thing is. Okay. It's a piece. It's a piece. Okay, so here we are. I did, that's meant to say notes. I did try to put them into note form. Maybe it will help us with our structure a little bit. So, okay, let's do this quickly here. Okay, so we even started with this last week, the soul and the body in the next world, in this world and the next. He's spoken, this is chapter 4, right? Yeah. He's spoken chapters 1, 2, and 3 about God and what God wanted to do. This now turns into the subject, right? Man, what man is God's prime intention. That's the prime intention that God had, that this man would get this great benefit. He has a question. Why is right? Who is man? Obviously, his actions. We see that he acts, and what are the fruits of his labor? And then he seemingly, we noted this last week, but it goes into the resurrection of the dead straight away. And my understanding of that is that, in the Lachadodi, we say this beautiful phrase, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. The end act is the first thought. Meaning that, if you want to think about man, well, who is man? Oh, he's this being created by God to get this ultimate situation. Meaning, if you want to think about man, don't think about us in this poor state of lowliness. Think about man in his grandeur. So man at his highest is in the world to come. And that to me is why he jumps there. And I don't remember in the text if there's any real proof for this, but conceptually, to me, that kind of made this make sense. Yeah, at this point, we need to clarify the principle of resurrection of the dead. It's interesting. We started last week with this bit, and we saw that he gives an argument why there needs to be a body. Why do we need to have a body in the world to come? And he says, the idea of resurrection, stated briefly, is simple. God created man as a combination of body and soul in order that they should work together to carry out and uphold the holy task of keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs that were given to them. It is therefore fitting that they should both enjoy the eternal reward in the world to come. Inconceivable that the body should toil to serve God without receiving any reward. Now, no. The big question, right? And it's something which we can discuss as we go through the chapter. Who are we? Who are you? Right? Who are we? Are we clearly, from a Jewish point of view, have this body and soul? Is there more to us? Can I get this bit bigger? I like to see all of that. Is there more to us? Meaning that sense of I, the sense of consciousness, is that a third element? Or is that some sort of a overlap, right? That's what I'm thinking. Is that where the soul and body overlap that we get consciousness? We asked last week, well, does the body have consciousness? The body is the vessel for the soul. Why does it have to be in the world to come?
In the text here, though, it seems that the descriptions of actions are attributed to the soul, like the decisions to do in the parts that follow, to do good or follow the Torah. Those are taken by the soul on behalf of the body. So it seems as though the intentionality is ascribed to that part of the.
Yes, I agree with you. However, what happens when the body makes a decision? He's speaking about here as the plan, right? The plan for man. But then he says, let's go on to the next page, is why the two elements? Why the two elements of man?
Well, the body is coarse and dark and negative, and they're in tension and in opposition, and the soul has to purify and cleanse and elevate the body. So there's there's a negative energy associated with the body. It's not an empty vessel, it's base instinct.
And therefore
the soul is needed to balance and purify it with its light and its moral influence for good.
Right.
And ultimately, it's the impact of the soul on elevating the body that is counted in the world to come, in the final analysis, I think. There's a mutual interaction.
Yes. The question is, does you could ask the question, I think, two ways. You know, I always actually until now, you know, I have been under the impression that when a person dies, and in Jewish, that means that the soul is separated from the body, the consciousness, personality goes with the soul. Right? So Bob and Zadie are up there, you know, just as we left them. But I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that the consciousness, the sense of self, is at all the same when the soul is separated from the body. Okay, a very strange thought. I don't give you guys too many of my strange thoughts. I'm very conservative around you. You pinch yourself, right? You give physical pain or pleasure. Where is it happening? Is it happening in your brain, or is it happening in your body?
Yes.
Right.
Why is your brain is part of the body? The nerve impulses are part of the neural network. I mean, it's of a piece.
Meaning your no, okay, let me
Is your conscious experience embedded in your body?
Yes. That's a good way to put the question, right?
I've never had my conscious experience any other way. So it's
difficult to explain how people can walk over hot coals and not burn or feel pain too, because it might be an ability of their consciousness to detach from their body, or even to not even experience the physical sensation of being burned.
But there's also phantom limb sensation. People that have had their limbs cut off in war or whatever, and then they could still have pain, and they sense it where their foot was or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking on those lines as well. So does that mean our consciousness is kind of our awareness of self, of body, is very real, right? You sense it as yourself. I don't know if it extends beyond body. Does it extend beyond our body for anyone? Can you start identifying with your place, right? If you don't have your favorite, you know, your phone, right? Or you're not yourself with your phone. I don't know about that, but yeah, okay. Let's see if we can make head or tails of this. Okay, so you're saying something, Gil, or you?
No, I'm just not sure where we went with that. Thank you for that. I'm not sure. Where did we go? What's happening here?
Okay, fine. Yeah, this is the problem of me trying to not read the words. It's an experiment. We're trying. Okay. Well, these are the two distinct parts of man, he says, is really what facilitates the opportunity for earning his own reward by correcting the deficiencies and perfecting himself, or perfecting the world around him, right? If man was one, there would be no conflict. Conflict can only be created because there are two distinct elements within man. And as Uri said, right, the body is the coarse dark part that's bringing that's down, that's, you know, God created a world, we said, which is deficient. Where's the deficiency in the human being? In the body, right? The body is now. Then the task, I'm going to the next page. Ooh, yeah, after that, God made a pure soul, fashioning it from beneath the throne of glory. So here's the soul, which is this very elevated being. And the soul comes into the body, and its job is to purify it and make it holy. Now, it is important for you to understand that the ultimate purpose of the soul entering the body is not to enable the body to live this life of futility, meaning to enliven, to give life to the body, right? In Jewish thinking, it's the soul which gives life. So, is that what's so important? Just that you'll be alive, that's what, is that the purpose? No, its real purpose is to purify the body and completely and to elevate it from its lowly level of physicality and darkness to an exalted level of the ministering angels. So he says here, that the body ultimately can become an elevated, perfected entity, right? Meaning, we had a problem in the first 3 chapters. Deficiency is not very godly, right? And his answer to that was, yes, but the purpose is to make it godly. Once it's godly, it can exist forever. There's no reason why the body shouldn't exist. It's a perfect body, right? Once the body's purified and it's exalted on the to the exalted level of the ministering angels, that's a worthwhile creation, right? So to me, this is an alternate answer to that first kind of funny idea he put in, like, oh, well, the body worked for it, it needs to get reward. To me, what he's saying here is that the body ultimately becomes also godly, right? Its deficiency is repaired or perfect, fixed. Okay, we have seen 3 examples he brings. Moshe Rabbeinu, because the light started to, right? Keren or, right? We have to go, if Michelangelo was here, I would all hit him over the head with a frying pan, right? Keren, yes, means horn, but not when you're talking about a ray of light here, right? It's a ray of light that came out of him, not horns. So Chanoch and Eliyahu, they did the similar trick where their bodies actually became purified. And in that sense, the body did not, had reached its perfection. Now, how does the soul purify the body? By getting it to keep the mitzvot, right? Because a mitzvah is a lamp and the Torah is light. And keeping the Torah. I think he says, okay, I'm not sure, right? It could be learning the Torah for your brain, right? The more the soul acquires Torah and carries out the mitzvot, the more it purifies the body and earns merit for itself by fulfilling God's will. So, now, remember, the soul doesn't seem to be deficient except for the fact that it didn't earn its status, right? It's just the soul is from under the throne of glory. Its deficiency is in its lack of having earned its reward, its status. The body is deficient because the body is really deficient. It has an evil inclination. It's drawn to this world. It's dark. So now it's the perfect shidduch, because the soul, which is elevated, can come, train, work, or overcome the obstacle of the body, right? It's interesting because I almost changed the translation here. Just want to see the Hebrew. Who's doing the Torah and the mitzvot, the body or the soul?
I think it's both. I think it's man comprised of both.
I think so too. But look at this. The more the soul acquires Torah and carries out the mitzvot, the more it purifies the body and earns merit for itself by fulfilling God's will. Right? So it's the soul in this world is working, right? In order to acquire Torah and mitzvot, the soul must work. That, of course, is good because that gives it its ability to earn its status. Now, just want to make sure that that actually is a direct translation.
What page are we? Where are we on?
Yeah, we're on 149. So 148 in the Hebrew, and v'chol ma shehi marba liknot Torah mitzvot maba zikuch laguf hahu u'zchut la'atzma shehi mekayemet ratzon kona. So yeah, it's a good translation. So this soul needs to come into this world, do the work of Torah mitzvot, which then is done by overcoming the temptation, the darkness of the body, and at the same time, the body is purified and perfected to become shalem. Right? So it's a beautiful, like a lot of, it's a beautiful dynamic actually that he set out about how this is working. Okay. At this stage, any questions, thoughts, ideas?
This is common. I mean, this is the first sort of time that I'd heard of this, and maybe that's just my profound ignorance, which is likely.
Did you used to take your Walkman to Hebrew school?
I did not. I didn't have that. But my sort of thought is that you always sort of, the body was consigned to the grave, and then your soul would be elevated and move up. So for those of us of a certain age group, your soul was like Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the body would just carry out its functions and then be left aside as you ascended after death.
I'm not familiar enough with the Rambam and how he really thinks through this. What he does with the body in the end, because he's the one that is quite, I think, vocal about the fact that there is no body in the world to come. Don't be so foolish. Why would you need a body? On the other hand, there is this idea of the resurrection of the dead, which seems to be, very fundamental idea. I think what the Rambam does with that is, yeah, that's a miracle that happens at the end of time of this world. It's not the final world of the world to come. But he clearly learns that, no, the resurrection of the dead is an ultimate situation. So, okay, yeah. How radical or mainstream this is, I don't know. They're the two opinions that I know. Okay.
But mind-body dualism, this soul-body dualism, that's pretty foundational. Can't get away from that one.
Yeah.
Everybody's in on that.
Yep. That's the Yetzer Hatov, the Yetzer Hara. We got this battle, man. Listen, that's Moses, right? I've put before you the blessing and the curse, life and death. Choose life. right? There's a choice before you. It's not so clear that that's it, that internally the struggle's internal, but where else is it?
Is it bad that
But-
my first reference for choose life was
Train
train spotting?
I knew it, Don.
I'm
I
so
knew what you
sorry.
were smiling about. I didn't even have to. I knew you were smiling about train spotting. I was thinking Scotland, and yeah, I mean, I could just see your smile.
Sorry.
You communicated it in neon on your forehead, but go, yeah.
I was assuming he was going to They Live, which is the other option.
That's
But
We're gonna watch that together.
yeah, but the battle between good and evil of the body and the soul is in the Ramchal's view, it's not an equal battle in the sense that evil was introduced into the world and it will be destroyed ultimately. It's introduced to allow man to overcome it, but it's much weaker than the force for good and God's force. It's introduced on purpose so it can be overcome. So in that sense, it's not an equal situation. God will never allow the world to be overcome by evil.
it's a person, but I thought the Ramchal doesn't really get into like this. It's not a Manichaean thing on a large scale. It's a personal thing for everyone. I mean, at least in this chapter, we're talking about
In this chapter, but in his overall philosophy, it is a big part of how the world is constructed, that God, when he removed himself, introduced evil to be overcome by man with free choice as a prerequisite for the 6,000 years plus time.
But I don't want to digress us. I'm just, when let's go right to the example of the Holocaust, of course, because I mean, where's that going to fit into the calculus? The earlier point is that we are not going to be able to know where the scales of justice working in the universe are going to be. We're not going to be, it's beyond our vision. It's beyond
Right.
our.
So that would be his answer to the Holocaust, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
it sure looked like evil was winning for a time there in that sense. So it's like,
Yeah.
when we're talking about this chapter, we're really, in terms of the body and the soul, it's the soul's job within the body to fight the impulses that the body wants to pull down and the soul wants to lift up and elevate. And I don't know.
Now he did say, and I wish I could just find it quickly. He did say, I think in chapter 2, he mentioned something about pain and suffering. And I think that is one of his answers for how this works. Meaning, Uri, you're right? God's deficient world was only created that all deficiencies should be erased. And that's the first 3 chapters is how that's going to happen now. Everything's working towards that. And when that happens, it will be a perfected world to the degree that it's, this world. That means the Yetzer Hara is left. The Yetzer Hara is vanquished. But what about the deficiency? So, what? Yes, good question. So then what happens to the soul? Let's say a person did not do Torah mitzvot, right? So the soul did not work, did not earn its position. The body remains opaque. What happens when Mashiach comes, right? What happens in those end of days to the individual?
You have 1,000 years, another 1,000 years to perfect yourself if you're only at a middling status. 6,000 years is when it begins. There's another 1,000 years for the perfect time where evil is erased and everyone is elevated.
Yeah, but is there elevation there when it's not a struggle? That's the problem with. That's the problem with. With saying that it's going to happen automatically.
I mean, I think he says, I read ahead a little bit even before the class began, and so I'm not sure if we already read this or not, because it's kind of confusing my mind what I read when. But I think that he was pretty explicit about saying that in the end of days, when the Messiah comes and all the souls are returned to their bodies, whether you earned it or not, you're perfected. Namely, the world is going toward the perfect whole state, whether individuals contribute to that or not. And so the purpose of that individual contribution, almost sounds like I'm doing my W-2 or something. The purpose of the individual contribution is so that you are earning your keep,
Which
because
box?
that is an
Which box
elevated state.
exactly again? Say that again. But what happens if? So what are you saying? How does the soul get that benefit which it didn't work for? How does it get around that fact, that problem?
I think the benefit is that it earned its keep, that man earned his keep or her keep by succeeding toward purification on his own, understanding Hashem, understanding mitzvot, and committing himself, body and soul together, to permit the soul to defeat the Yetzer Hara and to reach to a more elevated state without the free ride that the Messiah is going to give him, without the free ride that the Messiah is going to give all of us in the end anyway.
Right, but I think that does leave a distinction between people in the end. Those that...
It does. I mean, he even says that a little bit later on in this very chapter, and I can try to find it. He says it.
Yeah.
But I mean, gosh, I mean, I'm not opining. I'm pretty sure I read that.
Yeah,
So I mean, what the
troubling.
alternative is that the soul is not returned to the body when the Messiah comes if that man to whom the body and soul belong to didn't do mitzvot and purify
is not
himself.
worthy.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case, right? I mean, that guy will get a free ride.
Well, isn't that kind
But
of
it won't be
troubling
as
then?
good.
Isn't that kind of doesn't that kind of remove the incentive structure? I mean, to perfecting yourself and to having the struggle, if in the end you're going to be pulled up not by your own actions anyway, that or is it, I mean, or is it the case that you've got to, in some other way, your soul has to make amends, whether it's not in the body, like your soul has got to go through a purification of its own accord, not connected to the body? Isn't there something like that? Lev, you mentioned a video you watched on YouTube. Remember, there was a rabbi that was talking about the process of the soul and the purification. He said that the confusion about sort of the burning sensation was actually the shame of the parts of your life that you did not live up to what you knew you should be doing. And that's the burning is like the purification of the soul. And once that process is, and that's why it feels like a burning sensation, because actually the burning of shame that you didn't sort of live up to what you knew you should be doing, right? Conquering the Yetzer Hara in your body. And then after that process, your soul is purified and it can move onward from the world of the souls. Do you remember hearing that? It was part of his.
Yeah, I do. He said a lot.
He said a lot.
It was hard to
That's what I was
retain.
Yeah.
To retain everything, but I mean, so maybe some people that do all this hard work, they don't have to suffer in the 1,000 years of purification because they're already ready to move on. But maybe other people that still have a lot of work to do.
The segment where the Ramchal talks about is on page 160, 161.
No, but I'm having read a little ahead. What he says is that you don't get a free ride. He in fact says each person will attain his appropriate reward in the world to come. So your reward, if you've quote unquote purified yourself more, will be greater than if you've done it less. So there's a proportionate doling out of rewards based on your elevation level. It's not a free ride.
So
Not
maybe
everyone
there's a
emerges.
dichotomy there. I think there may be a dichotomy there, Uri, because on the one hand, you're right, he says that over and over again, but in the binary decision of whether, all the souls will be returned to their bodies and will have a part in the world to come, right? In the binary yes or no, I think the answer is yes.
Yes, no, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. But within that, you have a place in the world to come. But within that, your status, so to speak, is a function of how much you've elevated yourself.
Right.
And your reward is proportionate to the degree of elevation.
Right.
Are you up there in the stands, or are you down? You got field tickets?
Anybody seen the movie Defending Your Life?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen this movie? In the afterlife, you get judged for how you've done, but the better you've been, the better your accommodations are. So, this guy wasn't so good. He's at like this sort of crappy, but his the Meryl Streep character is and Albert Brooks. It's really a fantastic film. Just check it out. You can't lose. Albert Brooks.
Very good movie.
Sorry.
Okay, so I it's interesting. We could even use this number 71 to discuss this, because you've shown that the body gains perfection through its connection to the soul, and that the soul acquires merit by fulfilling God's will in purifying the body. But how does the soul gain perfection? And he's adding here from its connection to the body, which, okay, like, what was missing in the soul that it's now perfected. So he brings in something very esoteric here. Says the soul's essential function in this world is the purification of the body. And after that, it finds itself temporarily in a different situation, but now is not the time to explain this. Regarding this, our sages said, as long as the body exists in this world, it lacks perfection. After the person has lived a life of virtue, followed the path of righteousness, and left the world still righteous, his body is compared to the Matriarch, whatever. Okay. What the soul accomplishes through its righteousness in managing to perfect the body is the increased elevation of God's glory that comes about whenever God's creations are perfected. So, I don't know if you know this phrase, Kiddush Hashem. Kiddush Hashem is you sanctify God's name. You prove God. You do something good that people are able to say, hey, oh, God is good. So by the soul overcoming and purifying the body, it's a Kiddush Hashem, right? There's an elevation of God's glory because there was something deficient, this horrible little body, right? And all of a sudden, the body is now transformed, right? The body is transformed into something godly. Well, that's a Kiddush Hashem. The reason for this is that God created everything in this world in such a way that when it's used properly, his glory becomes revealed. This increased revelation of God's glory is the way the soul's positive action actually gives satisfaction to the one above. And as a result, reward is granted to the person from above. The satisfaction God gains from a person's action during his lifetime dictates what God in turn will give back to him, right? So the degree that you've made your Kiddush Hashem on your own body, right? That you've sanctified this body, that's the degree that you've done something, as it were, for God, right? You've increased God's glory in the world. God will then give you glory. Now, does he mean that's the perfection? I'm not sure. Let's see the next bit. Oh, you know what? I don't think that is the next bit. All right, Mike. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. So let's see now. Now, It doesn't fit. Okay, I must come back to that question. Okay, this would have been great had Adam not sinned. But when Adam sinned, what happened was he took the body and made it so physical, so opaque, that no matter how much the soul is able to acquire Torah and mitzvot and do that through the body and get the body to go through the motions of living the sanctified life, the body does not, the physical nature of the body is not purified, right? We don't start to become illuminated, right? The soul does not shine through the body. However,
I'm sorry.
and that's why death was brought into the world, right? Nothing is bad, really, right? There's a purpose to death. Death is very good because in the grave, the body is purified. And that's why there's some people who, right? That's what it means. It's a phrase that they died through the bite of the nachash, through the, right? It means that, right? Like he says down here, the soul will illuminate the body, and the contamination the snake injected into Chava completely disappears from the body. So we became contaminated physically. The body is rebuilt at the time of the resurrection, and the soul enters it, and there. Now, let's see how he works this out. The soul will re-enter it with full power of the good deeds it performed in the world, and with the radiance of the divine light it enjoyed in Gan Eden as a result of these good deeds. So the soul starts off as this very elevated thing, is put into this body, and then when it leaves the body, when death happens, there is some radiance of the divine light enjoyed in Gan Eden as a reward for the mitzvot, right? For that Kiddush Hashem. That's the Kiddush Hashem he spoke about before. You in your life increase God's glory. When you die, God increases your glory, right? That's a direct reward to the soul, and an element of its elevation, of its purity, of its radiance. Then the soul will illuminate the body with brilliant light, purifying it completely and curing it of all its negativity to which it was previously subject. Okay. So I guess what he's saying is, let's try work it out, that the soul works, and it therefore earns this kind of right to be what it is. It's earned its status. Never mind that its status is enhanced because there's a reward to the soul for doing all this work, right? Never mind it earned who it is, but it's earned more than that, right? You're born to a royal family. You're born to a very wealthy family. That in itself is a good thing. But then you go ahead and work very hard and make more money, right? So then it's not only are you elevated, but you've brought elevation to your status. Is anyone relating to that point? And then the soul can come back into the body and illuminate it completely, right? And that will cure every deficiency in the body that remains from the sin of Adam. Maybe you want to explain this to your students tomorrow, Gil. Just, when there's a free 5 minutes on the trip.
By the way, kids.
Right. Yeah.
Do you want to
sure
know
that-
do you
Yeah.
want to know what I've been thinking about?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I do a lot of parochial schools, a lot of Catholic schools. If I open up this Pandora's box, I could be having long conversations with, I told you, they've already fitted me for the collar and the whole 9 yards. So
By the way, do you ever take them to the Bible Museum?
yeah, some parochial schools we do take there. No public schools, but yes, a lot of Christian schools, and yeah,
It's a pretty impressive place. I've been there.
it's a great place. I mean, it's a shame more people don't go there that are not from sort of religious schools, because there's a lot sort of historical, archaeological, sociological. I mean, the whole thing. If you guys haven't been, by the way, the Baltimore folks, you should go. It's fantastic. Great museum. I didn't know what to expect, because it's Hobby Lobby, and so you don't know if it's going to be a heavy-handed evangelical sort of a like
Was it well crafted?
What's that?
Was it well crafted?
It's well crafted. I thought it was
Sorry,
gonna
Hobby Lobby joke about no.
I thought it was like going to be Hershey, the Hershey chocolate ride where you go through and it's like one big sort of here's our chocolate is great kind of thing. It's not like that at all. It's very good. It's very interactive. Anyway, it's great.
I found a very old Testament. Like,
Yeah, it is. It has a lot on the Old Testament.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did there's the recreation of the old city of Jerusalem there, where you walk through the physical space that looks so much like walking around the old quarter. I mean, that's just neat, that experiential thing, right? So even if people aren't going to look for the galleries to learn everything, just the physical sensation of walking through some of these spaces is great. For those that haven't
But
been.
the Catholics would have a real problem with his denial of original sin. I mean, Judaism denies it generally, but he's very explicit about the fall of Adam not being the original sin. That has to be made up. Right.
well, here is Adam's sin, right?
Correct. But it doesn't have the weight,
Yes.
equal
It's
weight.
something
that
we
it
can
does
overcome.
Christianity. Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
but you still have to die, right? I mean, even the perfect people who never sinned, all four of them.
Right.
I like that there are four. Have
Yeah,
there
but
been any
that-
sins? So they don't know. Right?
They didn't really die, right? Eliyahu didn't die. His body didn't really die. He ascended without going through the process of bodily death, right?
I
His
thought it
soul.
said everybody had to die, and even that the four people who never sinned had to.
Well,
There were three:
Sorry.
Eliyahu,
Who
and
never died.
Moshe, and
Hanoch.
Elisha. They all go straight up.
well, he quoted Hanoch.
And
that he-
Hanoch, sorry, yes, yes.
That he was transported up to heaven without needing to die. Um,
Oh, so
Well,
you can do enough good to erase, because he said there are four people who never sinned,
now that's
No,
a
but that's
different thing.
different. That's
Yeah.
different. That's different.
and they still had to die.
Yeah, they had to die.
But that's
Oh, yeah.
different.
That's
You can do
those are
enough.
the people in Baba Basra. Yeah, they're the ones that they never sinned, but their soul was not strong enough to enlighten, to radiate through the body to the degree that it's really that the body could continue on without the death experience.
So,
The question
Rabbi,
is why
yeah,
why
I'm sorry.
Moshe needed it, right? Moshe is buried. It's very clear that he is buried. I don't know what Eliyahu had on Moshe. Interesting.
He kicked the stone, didn't he? Wasn't that the big
Struck the rock.
struck a rock? You weren't supposed to hit the rock. You were supposed
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
to
yeah.
it.
He did that. For that, he's not allowed into the land of Israel. I don't know if he lost his radiance with that. Good question. Okay.
So I'm sorry, I had another one. Sorry. is the idea that every soul starts off at the same level of illumination, that everyone at birth gets the same?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that at all. It definitely, just make it very practical. People are born into very different families and very different situations. Their early years are very different, the informant. So,
right, but when we talk about the soul, we're talking about, right, that's extra to the circumstance and that's the universal bit.
Yes. So according to Rabbi Dessler, he says, yeah, basically, yes, it doesn't matter. It's the work you do that really counts. I would think it'd be grossly unfair if some souls have higher illumination than others just because, they're born
At the
into
start.
to God's family.
My parents used to point out to me there's no word for fair in Hebrew. I don't know that it's true, but they used to say it. C'est lo fair. That's what we used to say.
C'est lo fair.
It's like the Hindu caste system, right? You kept
Right.
going higher and higher and higher until you finally
That's to be fair.
The gods.
Okay. Okay. So now, okay. So basically, my understanding of this chapter is like this. Who is man? Man's this creature created for this eternal delight in the world to come with body and soul. He has to earn that. How does he do it? Oh, by being this conglomerate of two initially opposing forces, body and soul. If the soul does its work, it will convert the body, and the body itself will become something godly. It will lose all deficiency. This is called, in the Musa parlance, this is called tikkun hamidot, right? That you fix them, you perfect them, you become a mensch, right? You become a mensch. In such a situation, rarely man could live forever, but because of the sin of Adam Arishon, that caused the physicality of the body to be so strong that it can't be impacted until it goes through the death experience. But then once that is over, then the soul will be able to come back as a soul which has earned its status, as a soul that has been actually it's been elevated because of the reward it gets for the work it did, and that will make such a huge impact on the body that the body will be immediately purified, and it will be something like to me, it's the Maharal of Prague says that the body is needed because the soul is too ethereal. It's like a beautiful bunch of roses is beautiful, but it needs a vase. It needs something a little more solid to hold it. So the body and soul is that relationship, and that's the ultimate relationship, which you could hear as this created being that's done so much work to be then delighting in the splendor of God for all times. Let's just see on this page if he, oopsies.
But on the bottom of page 155, where are we, 151?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
And
okay,
regarding
right.
the time,
Okay, sorry.
yes.
I was just going to Dan's point at the bottom of 155, the question of whether souls are equal. Clearly, well, this is a little different. At the bottom of 155, it says, on the other hand, if the soul's intrinsic existence were lowly rather than highly exalted, it would not be able to attain all the majesty and grandeur that will be granted it in the future world. But I think that's a function of how much you work on your soul during your life.
Right.
I think that's what he means, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
It needs, he's saying it needs to start off as a pretty high, on a pretty high level. Okay.
If it's too good, then it instantly purifies the body, right? That was this
Yeah.
like dimming switch. You got to get it set just right.
Mm.
Like if it's too strong, it overwhelms its purpose. It's, you know, it does all the good stuff.
You've got to do the work yourself.
But
Right.
if it's too low, then it'll never overcome the urges of the body and the evil inclinations. So it has to be.
That's here on the top of 157. Right, the soul's essence and source of origin is extremely exalted. Even in order for the soul to enter our lowly bodies, God reduces its illumination and limits its power, leaving it only the amount appropriate for the body in this world. And it would have been able to purify the body, though, had Adam not sinned. Enough illumination to do this. Okay, there's analogy to the moon, right? Go and diminish yourself. God told the moon, whatever. You see the midrashim over there. Now, how does the soul become perfected? It says like this: the soul has the ability to bring about its own good, to elevate itself more and more until it rises to its maximum potential, depending on how much it perfects its actions in this world. So really you could reach your tikkun, right? You did what you're meant to do in this world. However, the soul always remains confined because it's in the body, but I guess it's potential energy that you create. That's only actualized when you die, when you're freed from the body. It's a a guy in prison who's making a lot of money. It's great, he's becoming rich. It means nothing to him on a daily, while he's in prison, but the second he's released, he's got all that money. Right, and that's the test of the evil inclination, and that's the elevation of going higher and higher, etc. And that's the time of the resurrection, which fits in very nicely with the first three chapters, right? That's the time of tikkun. So this is the tikkun of the olam, but there's a tikkun of the individual. Yeah, there's something even at the time of the resurrection, since this causes the soul to ascend higher and higher, this fact that it is doing this job of purifying the body. Oh, okay. That's it. What happened to, that was 61. What happened to 63? Didn't get in here?
It's please summarize everything you have said, right? Was the set line 73? Right?
Yeah.
And so 74 is really just the summary.
Okay, I'm trying to find it on my. I don't have it in here for some reason. Okay, I'm just gonna. You have your books. I'm just gonna read it as our summary for tonight. The general principle is as follows: the body is coarse and deficient in its nature, and it needs to be purified by the soul. The soul itself comes from a very high source, but is diminished itself when it enters the body. This is in order that it should not overpower the body and purify it all at once, thereby transforming its whole nature. Instead, it does what it has to do in the body little by little, week by week, through the performance of good deeds. After that, it becomes elevated to in exact correspondence to the good it achieved. In this, right. So here, in the end, it sounds like, yeah, it's dependent on how much work you did. Lefi ma'aseha. The soul becomes strengthened because of its increased elevation. This heightened strength allows it to purify the body to such an extent that the body will be worthy to stand together with it in the pleasantness of God and frequent His palace for all eternity. I guess the question we raised earlier, which was, if in the end everything is perfected, right, what happens if a person didn't do his part? So it's interesting because what comes out is that the body will be perfected, right? The body will be able to contain the soul and be a perfect body, and the soul is a very lofty and godly type entity. Its only issue is that it hasn't earned its position. That might never be fixed, but that's true of the angels, right? That's true of he said the Malachei Shoris, right? The ministering angels. They also have that problem, even though they are eternal, because it's not, is it an essential deficiency? I don't think so. I think being a created being that has not earned that status, we can live with that. We can live with that forever. It's not a glaring deficiency. It's a, I have to think through the terminology. You hear what I'm trying to say? Anyone?
Yeah. So there are levels of perfection according to which you get your just rewards, but no one is downtrodden or no one is
No child
unelevated.
left behind.
Nice analogy. No, that's right. Right. That's a dichotomy, right? That no child is left behind, but some children are advanced even more.
Footnote 32 and 33 on page 61, 161 and 160. We didn't talk about those, but he specifically goes into the point, Ori, that we were talking, that point is getting at that. No, yeah. So everybody gets a base level of a portion of the world to come, but those who did the work significantly or did more mitzvot or with more whatever, had more of an effect, those people will, I don't know what the right analogy is. You get a closer proximity to the divine presence for eternity. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like Rabbi was saying, you're up in the nosebleed seats, or you're sort of, 10, a 50-yard line front row kind of seat. The proximity with which you get to be part of God's presence. That's the sort of the work that the work that you did during your lifetime that merits that sort of reward.
Yeah, I mean, that's thinking about it in a very reward kind of way, which might be. I think it might be more analogous to like you're part of the team that wins the game, one guy's going to be the MVP. So there's something more in it, even though, hey, we won the trophy, you know, we won the series, you know, you're part of it, but you're not, you within that perfection, you could have done a little bit more.
There's yet another way you could take it, and that's that everybody gets the same seats, but the people who did really well appreciate it more. Like, you get the show, you understand what it's about. You're closer to God because you're paying attention. You're there for the, you're in alignment with it. You're gonna appreciate it. The other people aren't gonna dig it. It's not the same for them.
Nice.
Even
I
if
like
they're
that
at the
explanation.
same.
Yeah. That's good.
No, I think that the struggle that I have with the dichotomy that we're talking about is that when mathematically we use the word perfection or whole, and we're thinking really numerically, whole is 1.0000, and so isn't it just impossible that two perfect beings are any different than one another? They're both perfect, right? So perfection is perfection. But I think that's too mathematical of a thinking about it. And I think that Dan's explanation is right on, namely the people, the soul, you know, the rejoined body and soul, that really got the message and really worked hard at it, are succeeding beyond just the folks who got the free ride, whether it means that they have, you know, better seats. that sounds so materialistic, right?
Yeah.
We don't like to talk about that. That's not what, you know, heaven's supposed to be, or but it's and perhaps Dan's explanation is much more palatable. They are more appreciative. They are able to enjoy it more. Not all that different than this world.
So there's an
Right.
interesting Mishnah, the interesting Mishnah at the end of Ta'anit, but it's like almost like out of nowhere, that says, in the world to come, the tzaddikim will form a circle around God, and each one will say, "This is my God, and I will glorify Him." And the point, I think many of the commentaries say, the point of the circle is you're equidistant, right? So there is, that's an interesting Gemara, because that sounds like, oh, you know, each one, there's an equal appreciation, although there the message might be that even though you lived very different lives and had different situations or whatever, if you did what you needed to do, even though you didn't do what your friend did, you'll be equally close, because he didn't do what you did. And you know, that maybe it's speaking more to individuality.
Or perhaps the Mishnah is only talking about the tzaddikim. I mean, the people who are not tzaddikim, yeah, they get to be in the afterlife, but they're just sitting around, not appreciative of what they actually got in the end.
Right. Yeah, there's another Gemara that says that in the world to come, a person is nikva, I think. He's a little burnt by the chuppah of his chaver. I have to find it. Maybe we'll discuss it. You know what? I can do some homework. I'll send that to you, and then we can go on to part 2. I'm sorry that we didn't get to the part of asking one of you to summarize tonight, but I do think we did justice to the chapter, and I look forward to going on. And with that, good night, folks. Lev, you good?
Good night, Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right.
Very good. Good night.
Nice seeing you. Bye.
Likewise.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Rabbi.